There's a moment in every person's life when they have to choose between staying broken or becoming unbreakable. And for one man, standing in an empty, foreclosed house with eviction papers in his hand, that moment arrived on the worst day of his life. Michael Torres was 43 years old when everything collapsed. He owned a small construction company in Phoenix, Arizona, employing 12 people and building homes for middle-class families. For 15 years, he had poured everything into this business. Long hours, sacrificed weekends, missed birthdays. Michael believed that hard work guaranteed success. Then the 2008 financial crisis hit. The housing market crashed overnight. Projects were canceled. Clients disappeared. Banks stopped lending. Within 6 months, Michael's company was drowning in debt. He laid off his entire crew, men he had worked beside for years. He sold his equipment to pay suppliers. He took out loans against his house, certain the market would recover. It didn't. By 2009, Michael had lost everything. The business was gone, the house was foreclosed. His wife, exhausted from the stress and financial strain, filed for divorce and took their 2 daughters to live with her parents in another state. Michael moved into a tiny 1-bedroom apartment with nothing but a suitcase of clothes and a crushing sense of failure. For weeks, Michael barely left that apartment. He sat on the floor, staring at the walls, replaying every decision, wondering where he went wrong. He had tried so hard, he had worked so honestly, and still he lost. The shame was unbearable. He avoided calls from old friends. He stopped going to church. He couldn't face people who had known him when he was successful. Michael felt like a ghost, invisible and irrelevant. One morning he woke up and realized he hadn't eaten in 2 days. He looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. Hollow eyes, unshaven face, defeat written across every line. In that moment, Michael made a decision. He could let this destroy him completely, or he could find one small reason to keep going. He thought about his daughters. They were 8 and 10 years old, and although they were living with their mother, they still called him every week. They still said, "I love you, Daddy." They still believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. Michael decided that if he couldn't rebuild for himself, he would rebuild for them. He would show them that falling down doesn't make you a failure. Staying down does. Michael started small. He couldn't afford to start another company, so he took a job as a day laborer on construction sites. The same type of work he used to manage, he was now doing with his hands. It was humbling. Men half his age were his supervisors. He worked 10-hour days in the Arizona heat for $12 an hour. But every paycheck, no matter how small, felt like proof that he was still alive, still capable. Michael saved every dollar he could. He lived on rice, beans, and whatever groceries were on sale. He didn't buy new clothes or go out. After 6 months, he had saved $1,500. It wasn't much, but it was something. Michael took that money and bought basic tools: a hammer, a saw, a drill. He started offering handyman services on weekends, fixing fences, repairing decks, painting rooms. He charged fair prices and worked fast. Word spread. One client referred him to another. Within a year, Michael had steady weekend work. He was exhausted, working 7 days a week, but he was building something again. Not a big company, just a small, honest service. But it was his, and it was growing. 2 years after losing everything, Michael had saved enough to rent a small workshop. He hired one assistant, a young man who reminded him of the workers he used to employ. Michael taught him the trade, just like someone had once taught him. Slowly, the business expanded. More clients, bigger projects. Michael wasn't just surviving anymore, he was thriving. But the real turning point came when his oldest daughter, now 12, asked if she could spend the summer with him. Michael's heart nearly broke. He was terrified she would see how little he had and be disappointed. But when she arrived, something unexpected happened. She didn't care about the small apartment or the old truck. She cared that her dad was working hard, that he was present, that he was proud of what he was rebuilding. One evening, she watched him finish building a custom bookshelf for a client. She said, "Dad, you're really good at this. You're like an artist." Michael realized in that moment that he had spent so many years chasing success that he forgot why he loved the work in the first place. Losing everything had stripped away the pressure, the debt, the competition. What remained was the simple joy of creating something with his hands. 5 years after hitting rock bottom, Michael's handyman business had grown into a small renovation company. He employed 4 people and had a waiting list of clients. He wasn't wealthy, but he was stable. More importantly, he was happy. He had rebuilt his relationship with his daughters, who now spent every other weekend with him. His ex-wife even called one day to say she was proud of how he turned his life around. Michael's story is not about becoming a millionaire or achieving fame. It's about something deeper. It's about the quiet, relentless decision to keep going when everything tells you to quit. It's about finding strength you didn't know you had and using it to build a life worth living. Michael could have stayed on that apartment floor. He could have let shame and failure define him, but he chose to get up. He chose to take one small step, then another, then another. And those steps, over time, led him back to himself. If you've lost everything, or if you're on the edge of losing it all, remember Michael's story. Rock bottom is not your ending. It's your reset. It's the place where you strip away everything that wasn't working and rebuild with clarity, humility, and purpose. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need to take one step forward, then another, then another. Because the people who come back from nothing aren't special. They're just people who refuse to stay down. And you can be one of them. Get up, start small, keep moving. Your comeback begins today.